Hello, my name's Ira. So, as some of you, okay, I don't think I've ever mentioned it before, but I love D&D. I am I am the perpetual DM, which means that I've been playing D&D for years and have always been the dungeon master, the one that actually, runs the whole thing. Like, I've never actually played D&D as a player before, which is kind of funny. But the reason why that's relevant is because as a dungeon master, a lot of the time you have to build or draw up maps. Sorry, my voice is. I think my voice just cracked right there. But that's the reason why my voice has been, like, not sounding that great in this entire recording is because it's just super dry and doesn't want to work right now. So, yeah. Unfortunately, you have to suffer with this voice I have. Anyways, maps to help visualize what's happening, where your characters are, where your players are. Theater of the mind is great, but having something that you can actually look at helps quite a bit. So, I thought, let's try and program something that can do that. And here we are. Ta-da! Well, this is it. This is what I have made. Now, it's taken like 10 or 12 hours. It feels like somewhere close to there. So, a lot and a lot and a lot of bug fixing. Sigh. Yeah. So, let's just start with a demonstration. That's always a good place to start. And I'm going to include the Git repo or a link to it in the description. So you can play with this yourself and have fun with it. Okay, so first, you're given a little bit of a text-based GUI. So please enter the number of 5x5 blocks tall that you want it to be. On my system, right around 20 is where it starts to slow down. Much more than that, and, well, it starts to get a bit finicky. I'm just going to put 15, and then how many blocks wide? I'm just going to put 20. Now, with actually generating this, it has to run through some logic, different rules, based on the blocks that are generated around it. So, what I did was I sectioned the entire map into 5x5 blocks, pretty reminiscent of D&D, and then render each of those blocks individually, and then bring them all together. Which means that I can represent each of those blocks pre-rendering. So just running through the logic a few times to get all the rules to work out, and then to actually render all of those. It works. So, if one maybe two iterations is pretty much fine. The more iterations you get, it's not going to get all that much better. You might have a little bit more trending towards order, but it's really not going to do all that much. But just for demonstrations, I'm going to have 5 iterations, and this is going to be the fun part. So, you can have different things, background colors, for the entire map. Now, personally, I like the forest. It's just green, and I love it. Next, how many pixels per 5x5 block we want. Now, right around 50 to 100 is about what I'd recommend. I typically go for 50. More pixels means that's going to have a much smoother feel, but you don't get that graininess that it just works a tad bit better for this specific type of map. But then if you have too small of a number, too few pixels, then you just don't get any details. So, right around 50. And then do you want the borders to be continuous? This just means that do you want all the borders to just be walls? No, that's kind of boring. So I'm going to say false and no. Now as you can see, it's running through. I'm going to look at this data feed before we look at the map that's generated. Just because, well, just because. So, starting off, it tells you the configuration that you entered. How many blocks tall, how many wide, how many times it's going to run through that generation, what's it called? Running through the logic for generating the map, etc. And then it tells you each time it doesn't populate that map, it generates it. So this is where it builds what the different elements are going to be. Whether they be walls or just open areas or trees or whatever. And then it builds it. What I set it to build is just a 20 by 20. So 20 rows, 20 columns. And it tells you where it's at, just so you can keep a track of how long it's taking and making sure that's actually doing something, especially for those larger maps. Now, for D&D, much larger maps aren't all that useful, but it's just kind of fun. Now, back over to that map it just generated. Now, it looks like kind of weird, but you can see that the borders are continuous, which means that it's all enclosed. Then on the inside, you have 4 different types of elements that you can have. We're going to ignore these little chests and little plants, the small ones. We're going to ignore those for now, and just look at the main everything else. So, first off, when we zoom in, you'll notice that everything has a bit of a grainy feel and texture to it. That was very much on purpose. So, I actually have a function just for fuzzing the colors. Now, the statics file, this holds all of our static variables. So we have the colors for the different materials. So stone is just a single color. The stone walls, they're a bit darker. Wood, the wooden walls are a bit lighter. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. The wooden walls are also lighter. Forest, they're darker. You get the point. In the statics file, we also have the weights for how the different types of things will be distributed. Now, it could have been a much easier way of figuring out how I wanted it to work, but at the time I was trying to work with fractions and then expanded them a bit, and it's not necessary. I could have just done it a much different way, but you get the rounding function for each of these. But if you'll look, floors are pretty common. They're the most frequently generated item. After that, we have walls. Walls, there's 3 different types of walls. If we go back to the map that we generated, we can see all 3 different types here. You have corner walls, you you have horizontal walls, and you have vertical walls. 3 different types. Then you have open spaces, which are just floors. And finally, you have trees. That's what these are supposed to be. They're not the best, but I just had to generate a circle. And personally, I really like this fuzzing. The fact that the different colors and elements have. For me, personally, it just makes them seem more natural, more organic. And then you can see that there's a probability distribution for how the different elements are going to be made or generated. Walls are pretty common. You have straight and corner walls. Then, what was the next thing? I think it was floors. Drat. The point is, looking at these different probability distributions, that's how it's going to be distributed. Now, the divided by 3, that's because there's 3 different types of walls. Divided by 2, that's because there's 2 different types of doors. And then divided by 3 for trees, that's just because you don't need that many trees. And that's really the only reason why. Then, decorations. There's different types of decorations that are generated. Currently, there's only plants and chests. There's a 1 in 5 chance that a wall or a door block will generate a decoration. And, well, plants are 5 times more likely to be generated than chests. And if we look at the map, that's what these little green things are. They're plants. So, plants, and then you have a chest. So, I think it's pretty fun. Cool. Looking at everything, that's really neat. How does it work? I'm sure you really don't care, but I've spent like 10 or 12 hours working on this stupid thing, and I want to show it off, even if I'm sleep deprived, to at least somebody that wants to look at it. So, yeah, you get to enjoy me enjoying this. But I think I'm going to step through how it works and all the different files in the next video, because unfortunately I still have to keep everything to under like 20 some odd minutes. It's somewhere around 20 minutes, and well, it's going to take a tad bit of explaining to put it all together. So I'll be back. See you in the next one. And see you!